At long last, Dusk is finally finished. It's out of early access, and importantly, that means episode 3 is now available. If you missed my reviews of the first 2 episodes, I'll link them in the description, but to quickly recap, Dusk is an old school 1990s throwback shooter developed by David Szymanski and published by New Blood Interactive. The first episode had you exploring farmland that was being taken over by a cult. The second episode had you exploring military bases, and now the third episode has you descend into a realm of black magic fuckery. I think you know the drill at this point. Let's do this! Having successfully built intrigue in the first 2 episodes, Dusk now has the unenviable task of delivering on the build-up. But don't worry, it definitely succeeds. The episode opens with the Dusk dude outside some sort of underground church with no weapons, forcing you to use this sword. The sword is great because it's a silent weapon, so you can use it to be sneaky and stealth kill enemies. Unfortunately, this level is really the only time you'll ever use this feature, so it does feel a bit redundant. Ugh, who cares? Charging it up and exploding enemies in a single stab will never stop being fucking delightful. From this point, the game proceeds to just get weirder and weirder. Now don't get me wrong, the second episode had its surreal moments, but episode 3 takes it way further, with seemingly no limit to the creative possibilities of what you'll see next. After playing through the third episode, it becomes fairly clear why it took so long to come out, because no effort was spared here. When I played the first episode, I assumed that the story had taken a back seat to serve the gameplay, when in reality, the story is in front of you the whole time, and it develops organically. It feels Lovecraftian, not just in terms of aesthetic, but in terms of its approach to revealing information, always keeping you just slightly in the dark to make the story more effective. I'm serious! Dusk has everything you would expect from a Lovecraft story, minus the racism. Oh dear, never mind. And I don't just mean the game has a bit of a creepy atmosphere, I mean there will be times when this game will make you shite yourself so hard it comes out your ears.
What the fuck? What the fuck? Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god, what the fuck?
The game pretty much forces you to have to piece the story together yourself, which makes it even creepier. Any AAA game would probably shite all over the effective atmosphere at this point by sitting you down for story time with Uncle Unfathomable Monstrosity whose visage would blacken your very soul with boredom, but Dusk instead keeps you at arm's length and in turn is a lot more effective. Also, and maybe I'm grasping at straws here, but the crappy graphics kind of add to the creepiness. If you consider the idea that we have the fear of the unknown and the less we know about something, the scarier it is, then the lack of detail actually makes the monsters scarier, because you're never 100% sure what you're looking at. Yeah, that's fucking right. What I'm unironically arguing here is that if the game didn't look like Minecraft ported to the Wii, then it would be objectively worse. Fucking come ahead, debate me. This is quite sincerely some of the best storytelling I've ever come across in a shooter. Fuck, I'll even admit I didn't see the ending coming. That's right, a shooter surprised me in its conclusion. And all of this is achieved without once interrupting the gameplay. And by the grace of Michael Okerfeld's glorious moustache, this gameplay is exceptionally good. Obviously, it remains unchanged from the first 2 episodes, so bunny hopping across the map and blasting away at cardboard eldritch horrors is just as fun as it's ever been. The maps in episode 3 get even larger than in previous episodes, allowing you even more room for manoeuvrability. Episode 3 also introduces some new enemies to Dusk. Now, all of these monsters do have names. I don't know what they are, but I think it's more fun that way. So just roll with it, alright? You have these hovering black spectres with glowing blades who can tank a decent bit of damage but are fairly easy to avoid. There are also these legless dogs in wooden frames. They're kinda like the battering ram from Return of the King, but in this case, animals were most certainly harmed in the making of this film. They soak up a ludicrous amount of damage, and they move so fast I couldn't even tell what I was looking at the first time I encountered one of them. I only thought it was some kind of dog because I heard growling. Even then, it could have just been the ghost of Chuck Schuldiner for all I knew. Then of course we have these wee naked bastards who run at you with their mouths wide open, flailing their arms in a way that should be hilarious but manages to be freaky every time. Oh bollocks, these things. Okay, you know that Cards Against Humanity card that says a ball of earwax semen and toenail clippings? Well, apparently that thing achieved sentience, and now a papier-mâché nightmare shoots a limitless supply of skulls at you. Lastly, we have these annoying floating fuckers who shoot really fast, high-damage fireballs at you and refuse to stay still. They'll never be as annoying as those rats, though. Oh, you think you're so funny, don't you? With all that said, the real highlight is the level design. First of all, they say you can't polish a turd, but Dusk is one of the shiniest turds you'll ever see. The retro visuals aren't an excuse for laziness. Instead, Mad Davey Szymanski pushes the visuals to their absolute limit with some genuinely jaw-dropping moments that'll make you completely forget about the low poly count. To any of the wee pricks that immediately judged this game for its visuals, take a look at this and then apologise. As for the practicality of the level design, it all works really well. Now, Yahtzee, I love you mate, but what was it you said about the levels again?
What I'm saying is I'm actually old enough to remember the Quake era, and if Dusk had come out around then, it wouldn't have been in the upper tier of shooters at the time.
Goodness me, would you look at the time? It's your fucking wrong o'clock. These levels really are some of the best you'll have the privilege of playing in a shooter. They're fun to explore and hold many secrets, but crucially, you always know where you're going. Well, except for the time when some crucial information about where you need to go appears on screen for a total of 1 second and never comes back. But other than that, it is very intuitive. As I've already established, the levels are intensely atmospheric, but they don't blend together. The variety of locations here is staggering as the creative possibilities of the demonic concept are fully explored. From a level in which you have to strafe out of the path of a raging tornado as it tears an opening for you, to a level in which you have to manipulate the orientation of the level in order to progress. The gameplay may be repetitive, but thanks to the excellent level design, it never gets boring. Perhaps the greatest asset of the game is that it knows when to hold back, and allows moments of calm and levity at just the perfect times, making the action feel more impactful. The boss fights are great once again, and each one feels unique because you have to fight them in a different way. For example, one fight takes place entirely underwater. I won't spoil the very final boss, but just before the final boss, you have to fight this absolute mad lad, as David Szymanski strikes the frankly genius idea of essentially having you fight another FPS protagonist with the same arsenal and skill set as you. It's exactly like playing the multiplayer. Except I can actually win. Just like the previous episodes, you don't actually have to fight any of the bosses, you can just run past them. This confused me for so long, until someone very helpfully pointed out that the reason this option exists is so that you can earn the Pacifist Award on every level, even the final boss. Now it makes sense, and in fact I think it's great that this option is left open. I think the last thing to discuss about the actual gameplay is the difficulty. Despite all the warnings the game threw at me, I soldiered on and continued to play on Surreal Medio, and if you ask me, this difficulty is perfect. It hits the sweet spot of being constantly challenging, never allowing you to let your guard down, but being just forgiving enough not to be frustrating. I think this is the best way to experience the game because it enhances the tension and atmosphere when you know that just one monster jumping out at you from a dark corner really could end you. Cerro Medio literally translates from Spanish as unlubed hate fisting, and I think that's quite fitting. You really do have to be at the top of your game and understand how to use both the game's movement and the full arsenal of weapons to your advantage. I'll admit, it can get tiring, but I do think it really is the best way to experience this game. Then again, if you're either new to old school shooters or maybe you're just a bit rusty, there's still no shame in toning it down a bit. Now let's not forget about the music. Andrew Hulshult, take a bow, you absolute legends. The score in the first 2 episodes was great, but episode 3 is just on a whole nother level. The ambient and atmospheric sections are especially brilliant here, giving the quieter moments a real sense of dread. Then when the action starts, the music is exhilarating and metal as fuck. Industrial elements are mixed with gent-like grooves, played with a dark, sludgy tone that you might expect from doom metal. There's something about the guitar tone that sounds slightly dirty that makes it fit the game's aesthetic perfectly. The result is one of the most instantly recognisable soundtracks I've heard in a long time. Still, I think one of the areas in which the game is lacking is in the protagonist, Dusk Dude. I get that blank slates were common in the 90s, but in this case I don't think a silent protagonist actually works that well. With iconic characters like Duke Nukem and Serious Sam spouting one-liners at every opportunity, it wouldn't hurt to add a bit of personality to Dusk Dude. Granted, having the Lovecraftian ZZ Top over here cracking jokes all the time might compromise the atmosphere that the game does so well to build up, But the game isn't lacking in levity or humour. A lot of the humour usually comes in the form of red text on the screen with the clear implication that it's what the protagonist is thinking. And Dusk Dude obviously isn't supposed to be a complete self-insert when you consider the sequence in which you visit his old home with which he has a very clear history. So I think he should have a more defined personality. And it's not like the rest of the game is lacking in good voice acting either. What little there is very effective and well delivered. Maybe the silence really is necessary for the atmosphere, but the game is never in danger of taking itself too seriously. So I think that Dusk Dude deserves a voice. You know what else he deserves? A pair of fucking hands! You know, George Edward Moore says, if I have hands, I exist. Well fuck Georgie, I don't know what to tell you, but my hands are nowhere to be seen. Now, this will be the most nitpicky complaint I throw at this game, and hands aren't necessary when you consider the stubby digits of the Quake Ranger were missing. But as I recall, Bedlam was burned in effigy for the same offence, so it's only fair that I bring it up. Overall, I think episode 3 is probably the best out of all the episodes, as it should be when it's the last one. The level design is unbelievably good, and this episode feels like a serious test of your skills. All 3 of the episodes have their moments, and really, they should all be taken as parts of a whole, as each episode carefully builds upon the last. Still, I think episode 3 was the right way to end the game, and it was definitely worth the wait. So, while we're all here, I thought I'd take some time to talk about other aspects of the game that I never discussed in previous videos. We'll start with Endless Mode. It's exactly what it sounds like. You just fight wave after wave of enemies. There are 3 maps, one for each episode. Not only does the map change, but the kinds of enemies you fight also change. You'll only see scarecrows in the map based off episode 1, the one based off episode 2 is full of military goons, and the one based off episode 3 has a whole lot of It's a good bit of fun, but it's still crying out for a leaderboard of some description. I'm not a huge fan of this game mode, to be honest. It gets old pretty quickly, which isn't helped by the map selection. Functionally speaking, the one on the farm is the best, even though it's the most visually uninteresting. The factory has a great sense of verticality, but I don't like having to rely on the climbing power up to reach some of the weapons. Lastly, the church gives you plenty of room to move, but once the tornado tears through the only discernible landmark, you're pretty much left with a big flat space. It gets a bit boring from that point. Then we have Dusk World, which is the multiplayer component. I'm not gonna lie, I expected this to feel a bit tacked on, but it's actually very fun. The hit detection is responsive, the weapons suit multiplayer just as well as they suit the campaign, and the level design is at the standard of excellence you should expect at this point. I'll admit, I'm pretty bad at it, and I get steamrolled every time, but I still manage to have fun, and that's a sign of a great multiplayer game. I like the character customization, and I will say I'm glad that the dog is an option for a player model. I was legitimately worried that servers were just going to be full of clansmen until I realised everyone would pick that one. Now, I do have a few criticisms of the multiplayer. Firstly, I think it would be nice to have some other game modes, namely capture the flag and also maybe an option for one-on-one duels along with smaller maps for this purpose. My other criticism is that there aren't any death animations for some reason. Even if you chip away at someone's health with a pistol, they'll explode into giblets, which makes the gibs stop feeling special. Look, I know less about game design than Bring Me the Horizon know about metal, but surely it can't be that hard to import a few of the death animations from single player. I just think it would be nice to have a way of differentiating high damage kills from low damage ones. Another thing, it would be helpful to have a proper kill feed in the top right. The little messages that come up when you frag someone are pretty cute, and a few of them actually made me laugh out loud the first time I read them. So why not stick them up there for the whole server to see? It's easy to lose track of who's winning when you aren't aware of what frags are happening at any given time. Furthermore, the game may be alive and kicking now, but, and I hate to have to say it, it won't be forever, so adding bots might be a good long-term investment. Also, the multiplayer is admittedly a bit buggy. For example, my friend started using a grenade launcher at one point, and this happened. Oh my god, what? Still, the multiplayer is great fun, and I'm glad that I have a new place to go for good old-fashioned fragging. I'll tell you this much, it's a whole lot better than Quake Champions. At least it sticks to what it's good at rather than trying to pander to an audience that won't be interested.
Here you youths, you like shooting things, right? Well, we've got a shooter for you. Don't worry, it's not an old one, I promise. I'm down with the kids. Look, it's got heroes like that game you all love. Overmen. Aye, that's the one. Overmen.
The Dusk community has a frag night every Saturday, and who knows, maybe one of these days I'll remember that it's on. Well, I guess the trilogy is complete. I don't want to end this too abruptly though, so I'll leave you with this. I think the most overwhelming running theme through the game is charm. This really is one of the most endearing games you'll ever play. It's a game designed with a clear passion and understanding of the shooters of old. It's the little things that stick with me, like being able to cook meat on fires, get drunk after just 3 beers, I can relate, or be able to one-shot literally every enemy in the game with a bar of soap. That is totally unbalanced, but I wouldn't have it any other way. This is a game that was designed with fun as the top priority from the very start, and it shows. To conclude, I think that Dusk is ultimately a testament to the greatness of old school shooters, and exists as concrete proof that these older design sensibilities are genuinely better than modern offerings. This game represents a revival of non-patronising game design, where decisions were made not because of some focus group, but because the developer thought players would enjoy it. Dusk makes me feel very optimistic, because when a low budget game developed by just one person can be one of the best shooters in decades, that gives me a lot of hope for the future of first person shooters. I'm Perg, and Merry Christmas, I guess.